Carissa Romero is the Associate Director of the Project for Education That Scales at Stanford University. There, she worked with Professor Carol Dweck, a leading researcher on the importance of growth mindsets. Carissa has delivered and evaluated mindset tools with hundreds of thousands of students in schools, colleges, and online learning environments across the country. Please help me welcome Dr. Carissa Romero.
Thank you. How are you guys doing? Everyone happy to be staying dry? I definitely am. I came here with boots up to here and the biggest umbrella I can find. So I want to talk to you about moving from a focus in education on performance and judgment to a focus on learning and development. For students who have a growth mindset, school is an exciting place. It's an opportunity for students to learn, which is exciting in a growth mindset because learning is the way that you develop your intelligence. These students who believe that intelligence can grow welcome the challenges that they experience in school. When they're faced with a challenge, that's exciting because if they already know how to do it, it wouldn't be an opportunity to grow their intelligence. But for students with a fixed mindset, school can be a very threatening place. If intelligence is something that is set in stone at birth, then the purpose of school is to be judged and to do well. These students view effort and challenges as an indictment of a lack of ability. They think if I have to try, then I must not be very smart. So they falter in the face of challenges and setbacks. As Eduardo Briseno pointed out, research has shown that there's a relationship between students' mindsets and their academic achievement. Recently, at PERTS, we had the opportunity to work with researcher Susanna Claro to look at the relationship between mindsets and achievement in an entire nation. We were able to give 10th grade students taking the Chilean National Achievement Test a mindset survey. And we found that students who had a growth mindset were 3 times more likely to score in the top 20% on the National Achievement Test. And students with a fixed mindset were 4 times more likely to score in the bottom 20%. One thing that I found really striking about this study is that the predictive power of mindsets was similar to the predictive power of students' parents' income level. So students who were below the 10th percentile in terms of their parents' income level, if they had a growth mindset, they did as well as fixed mindset students whose parents were in the 80th percentile. What's really exciting about growth mindset research isn't just that there's a relationship between mindsets and achievement, but also that we can change mindsets. And when we change mindsets, students do better in school. The way that we change students' mindsets is that we teach them about the neuroscience evidence showing that the brain is malleable. We teach them that the brain is made up of neurons and that neurons are connected to each other. When we have stronger connections between these neurons, we can think faster, and that's what makes our brain stronger and smarter. Eduardo talked about a study where researchers taught students this neuroscience lesson through a series of in-person lessons. And they found that 7th grade students who were randomized to do this growth mindset program earned higher math grades than students who were randomized to a control group who learned about study skills. At PERTS, our goal is to take this research on mindsets and translate them into resources that educators can use to help students develop adaptive mindsets. We've translated these in-person lessons into online modules, where students read about how the brain is malleable and how that when they work on challenging things, they can become smarter and make their brain stronger. So students read about this, they see pictures, they can hear audio if they want to, and they engage in writing exercises that help reinforce the ideas in these online modules. And these online modules are only about 2 class sessions, sometimes even 1. In a study that we did to test the effectiveness of one of these online modules, we sampled over 1,200 high school students from 13 high schools in the United States. And we found that underperforming students, so roughly the bottom third of students, who were randomized to receive this growth mindset module, earned higher grades in their core courses compared to students who were randomized to a control condition. Notably, the randomization happened at the individual level. So when students came into the computer lab and went to the link to begin this online module, they were either randomized to see the online growth mindset module that I showed you, or they were randomized to also learn about the brain, but not that it's malleable. So they learned, for example, about what the different lobes of the brain do. In this study, we also looked at the course pass rates of these underperforming students and found that students who were randomized to the growth mindset condition passed significantly more courses after the intervention than students who were randomized to the control condition. As Eduardo pointed out, these growth mindset programs are particularly effective for students who are stigmatized. These students face additional barriers to academic success. And it makes sense that these growth mindset programs are most effective for these students because a growth mindset affects the way that students respond to challenges. And given that these students are facing more challenges, we would expect that these mindset interventions would work better for them. This isn't to say that growth mindset programs aren't important for students who are doing well in school. If students are going to go on to do anything meaningful, we know that at some point they will encounter a challenge. And so it's important for all students to have a growth mindset. So given the importance of these mindsets, and given that we know that we can change them, an important question is, what can educators do? Eduardo talked about the importance of giving process praise over person praise. He described a famous study by Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck, where students who were given intelligence praise after they completed a set of moderately challenging problems did worse on an equally difficult set of moderately difficult problems if they encountered a setback in between. So they thought that if they were smart when they did well, then when they faced a challenge, that must mean that they weren't as smart as they thought they were. But students who were given effort praise instead did better on the same set of moderately difficult problems, even though they too had experienced the same challenge or setback. What else can educators do? What about when students haven't succeeded yet? What about when we need to encourage them when they're already struggling? At PERTS, we had the opportunity to do a study on growth mindset encouragement with the Khan Academy. So when students were working on fraction exercises, they saw different messages at the top of the screen. Some of these messages were growth mindset messages of encouragement. So messages like, if you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to grow smarter. And some of these messages were control messages, including messages that are also encouraging but not growth mindset statements. So things like, stick with it and you'll learn fractions, or just try harder, which are things that students hear a lot. But it's not clear why you should try harder or put in effort if you haven't succeeded. If you're struggling, you don't have that evidence that effort is going to matter. So growth mindset encouragement makes it clear why effort is important. It's important because you can grow your intelligence. And what the study found is that students who saw these growth mindset statements of encouragement, which were just these sentences on the top of the screen, mastered significantly more fraction concepts than those who saw the control statements of encouragement. So what does a growth mindset classroom actually look like? I recently have had the opportunity to talk with teachers who make it a point to cultivate a growth mindset culture in their classroom. And one of these teachers is a teacher named Madi Montoy Wilson. And she is a second grade teacher at East Palo Alto Charter School. So for those of you who aren't from the area, East Palo Alto is a low-income neighborhood. Many of her students are English language learners. And she develops a growth mindset culture by teaching students that when they challenge themselves, when they make mistakes and they work through those mistakes, that's really an opportunity for them to become smarter. That is how people learn. And she encourages students to make mistakes and to reflect on those mistakes, even publicly. So when I visited her classroom, I witnessed a really amazing thing. So they were working on a geometry task, and the task was for students to identify 3D geoblocks based on 2D images of the 6 faces that make up the block on the overhead. So all the students had cartons of blocks in front of them, and the 6 2D images of the faces of the blocks were on the overhead. And one student thought that he had identified the correct block for the current problem that they were working on. So Madi called on him, but he got the answer incorrect. And when students give an answer, and they have to explain their answer as well, the other students in the class give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to indicate if they agree or disagree with the student's answer. And this student noticed that a lot of students were giving a thumbs down. And so when students see this, that students are giving thumbs up or thumbs down, they can choose to call on other students and ask them, why do you agree with me, or why do you disagree with me? And so the student chose to ask some of the students why they disagreed with him. So another student explained why his answer was incorrect. And then what Mari has students do in this situation is either ask for additional clarification if they still don't understand why their answer was incorrect, or explain why now they understand what the correct answer is. Now, this little boy still didn't seem to understand why that was the correct answer, so he asked for additional clarification. And at one point, he thought that he had understood the answer, so he tried to explain why now he understood why his answer was incorrect. And this started to go on for a while. And remembering what it was like for me to be a student, the kind of classroom that I grew up in, this was very threatening for me. I was really nervous for this student because everyone was staring at him as he was struggling, as he was making mistakes. But none of the students in the class seemed to think this was an abnormal experience, because it wasn't. In the growth mindset culture that this teacher had cultivated, this was a normal learning experience. So this went on for a really long time, about 20 or 30 minutes even. And at one point, the student stopped talking because he really just didn't get it, and he just stared at the screen. And at this moment, I was really anxious for this student. But Mari obviously wasn't. She said, I can see that you're thinking so hard, your brain is really getting stronger because you're thinking really hard. And then he still didn't quite get it, even after this long period of pause where everyone was staring at him. Finally, after a few more back and forths with other students in the classroom, he got the answer. And he was beaming. He wasn't embarrassed at all. He was really excited. It felt good to him. And after this, Mari asked him to reflect on how he felt when he had this experience of struggling. She asked, did you feel embarrassed? Did you feel frustrated? And he said, no, I felt happy. I felt excited. And the whole class felt this way as well. They even suggested that they should get some kind of reward for all of the good thinking that had occurred. They felt that they had really learned something. This is what classrooms can look like. When you help students understand that school is about learning and not performance, then students come into the classroom willing to learn and willing to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. I think after-school programs and summer programs provide a really good place to start this transition from a focus on performance and judgment to a focus on learning. And so what I want to ask you guys today is to make the connection between what you're already doing and this growth mindset research, and to be the catalyst in changing all of education, after-school programs, summer programs, and the classroom, to move from this focus that we currently have on judgment and performance to a focus on learning and student development. Thank you.